Right, hello everybody, welcome back to another video. We are continuing our Let's Play of Operation Barbarossa. We're now in the month of August 1941, and the Soviets are in retreat. Last turn, we got the chance to see the Soviet army pull back from the Dnieper River. This is definitely an ahistorical situation because historically in the war, we know that the Soviet army decided to hold the line here, and this is what eventually would lead to effectively the Battle of Kiev. Our timeline is a little different because right now it's still August, and it's actually the second fortnight of August, meaning the second half of August. The third and fourth week of August is another way to look at it. And the Battle of Kiev that took place in Operation Barbarossa historically started, I think, around September, or at the very least started in late August and went on through the month of September. So right now the German army is 1 month ahead of schedule, and I'm not exactly sure where the event or set of events took place that allowed us to get ahead of schedule. But if I had to guess, I do think it was that initial breakthrough by the German army in Barbarossa, the fact that we shattered an entire Soviet front in the south and then proceeded to destroy a second Soviet front in the south. Two Soviet fronts were shattered in the south. And then further north, the Western front was taken completely off guard, while the Leningrad front didn't have the opportunity to really withdraw via land to Leningrad. They did pull back from Tallinn, but that was very recent. So I would say that the overall withdrawal by the Red Army has been a bit behind schedule, and the German army has simply been able to keep their tempo going very effectively throughout the first 2 months of Operation Barbarossa. With that said, we're going to now continue on with the German invasion. Probably should start the new log file. There we go. And yeah, this turn is an interesting turn because you can tell that the German HQs are definitely exhausted. But if I decide to preserve as many as I can, if I choose not to blitz on this turn, I actually will be able to build them up on the next turn, because the end of this second fortnight is a production phase for the German army. And with that, we're going to be able to build them up to full strength. And then the month of September, and I can show you here in the calendar or the production table, you can see that September is really the last turn that we have good weather. And then after that, it's a roll of the dice, whether even or odd, depending on the die roll, will determine if it's going to be mud or dry. So it's kind of a hit or miss the month of October. Historically, that's where the Battle of Moscow took place, at least the initial phases of the Battle of Moscow. And the German army definitely had some logistical and weather complications that were interfering with their operation by this stage in the fighting. So, like I said before, the Battle of Kiev took place in September. That was really the last period of guaranteed dry weather. And then we eventually saw the initial phase of the Battle of Moscow, where the German army attempted to take the city, but to no avail. And by the time we get to December, do we see the very famous Soviet counteroffensive in the dead of winter that really does proceed for the next 2 or 3 months, chase down the German army, especially Army Group Center, and create kind of like a calamity shatter, if that's even a way to put it, but create like a catastrophic event for the German army that it basically, in a case where the German army nearly lost a lot, and they were able to get away by the skin of their teeth, and in doing so, it really did sabotage their strategic momentum on the Eastern Front. It would definitely prolong the conflict for a whole another year, and this situation by the end of the Battle of Moscow was one that put Nazi Germany at the strategic level in a very awkward position. And it's kind of all downhill from there. As we all know, there would be some major Axis victories later on in 1942. A lot of German counteroffensive operations that were quite devastating. But by and large, the German army would never really see a strategic win for the remainder of the war. Perhaps you could argue there was a few successes by the Afrika Corps in North Africa, but those would eventually stall out at El Alamein by the end of the year. And I'd probably say the only other area I can think of for the German military would see some major strategic success in 1942 was the U-boat campaign, but that would be quickly turned around in 1943. So really, in the context of the Eastern Front, the Battle of Moscow, which was kind of the culmination of Operation Barbarossa in a sense, it was the extension of Operation Barbarossa, really was where the German army kind of lost its strength, lost a lot of it at the very least when compared to the Red Army. So we're going to try to avoid that in this campaign. I'm going to play a much more conservative German army in the winter campaign because I do think that attacking too aggressively in the winter has its fair share of problems given the logistical complexities. And we're going to see that in this game. The game does a really good job, I think, at simulating or depicting the major handicaps and disadvantages the German army has throughout winter operations, especially this first one that we will see very soon. But right now, we're still in the month of August, and there's a lot left to be done in this last month. But even after this turn ends, we're going to have the month of September, a full month to do some serious damage. And I do plan to go all out in the month of September, cause as much damage as possible. And we'll see what happens in the months afterwards. October and November will kind of be a buffer period where we focus on really trying to build up our strength and prepare for winter. And then, of course, we'll have the winter campaign, which will be quite interesting for sure. So this turn, I think, is going to be a relatively simple turn because the focus, I think, right now is not necessarily to destroy a lot of targets. I think the objective right now should be to bring up as many reinforcements as we can to the front line so that the following turn we really can drop the hammer. So I do want to bring up as much manpower and troops as I can to the front lines. I'm considering deploying Army Group South to the town or city of Zhytomyr, and that would allow me to bring up some reinforcements. Although, frankly, a unit so far behind, like the 35th Infantry Corps, it's an infantry, it's not a panzer. In order for it to really catch up, it's probably better if it moves by rail. But right now, I think we've done a pretty good job of bringing up reinforcements. I only see 3 units behind over here, perhaps another 2 that are left behind down south, although I could try to bring these up. They're much closer, and I think I should, frankly, bring up the 4th and the 28th, the 4th Romanian Army, 28th German Infantry Corps, see if I can move them up a little closer to the front lines. And then there's a few other units that are very far north, completely out of range from Army Group Center. I do think it's in my best interest to move those guys up as well. So I do see the best course of action for this for the next few operations in the north to bring up reinforcements further east and also start putting pressure on Leningrad. I do think the next turn we do need to cut off Leningrad once and for all, because if we don't, it's going to be a pain in the ass to take it at a later stage. So I do think, take Novgorod while it's still lightly defended. And the best way to do that is not only put pressure on Novgorod, but also put pressure on these other areas north of that. And we can cut off the rail link directly from Leningrad to Moscow, which will be a big plus. And we can then seriously start cutting off their supplies. So, or at least maybe not cut off their supplies, but at least put a lot of pressure on them. So I think the name of the game here is really just moving up troops and moving up manpower. So I would want to have a unit in Demyansk and another in Bologo. It's kind of hard to see it there. I only see 1 German infantry unit, though, that's in range, which is unfortunate. I could move up another infantry, and try to get it to Stadioskol. That might be a good move because the river crossing is a hit or miss, frankly. So I don't know if we can actually pull off that river crossing and put pressure on Demyansk. But yeah, maybe without further ado, we actually start the turn. There's also a few units down south here that I would want to move up as well. So I think I might put Armor Group Center. I think its best location would probably be right here. 1, 2, 3. Not really. Unfortunately, my frontline units are not in range. So maybe I'm trying to figure out the best place to put it where I can command as many units as I can. Unfortunately, the 42nd Corps, I probably should have put it up a little bit more north when I moved it by rail, but I didn't even notice my situation. So I do like this setup though, or at least placing my unit there, because at the very least I can bring up some more reinforcements. Or maybe we do go back and leave it right there, and decide to not put any pressure in the north. Maybe we'll do that just to keep things a little interesting. And then Army Group South, I could blitz with Army Group South, but I'm not really all that interested in doing that. I want to pretty much bring up as many reinforcements as I can. And also the other thing to take note of is that Army Group South, I want it to be near the front if I really want to have a very, very nasty breakthrough operation later on. So that's something else that I should point out. But I think in the meantime, we're just going to deploy it to the rear like this, kind of an odd move, but I want to move up some of these other units more to the front. Like the fourth Romanian army would be nice. It'd be nice to have it move up. And then yeah, I can even actually move and put pressure on Sevastopol, which would definitely be an interesting move. I don't know if I necessarily want to take Sevastopol right now, but I think putting any kind of pressure on Sevastopol would have its advantages. Too bad I don't really have the strongest units to take Sevastopol, but it definitely would be interesting to take Sevastopol this early on in the campaign, and it would definitely open up the possibility for many other operations. So maybe I actually do send my panzers. I'm gonna have to send a lot of panzers though to the south if I want to take Sevastopol effectively. And right now it looks like I would only be able to attack with just 2 panzers, nothing more. So yeah, and obviously the Soviets would have time to set up some defenses unless I choose to blitz, which I could still do. I mean, even if I chose to blitz, I wouldn't be able to. I'm not in striking range of Sevastopol. That's the best way to guarantee the Soviets don't set up some defenses in the city itself. I'm assuming it's going to be a like level 2 strength Sevastopol, and that may be enough for the Soviets to really set up a nice defense. I have looks like 4 Panzer Corps, and I'm already going to be sending 2 to Sevastopol. And it still wouldn't have any infantry within range. So I really don't see the advantage of taking Sevastopol right now. Advantages that I do see, however, is maybe putting pressure on some of these cities, maybe attempting a river crossing, things like that. I do think seem a bit more advantageous. But yeah, in the meantime, I think we're just going to be moving up our infantry, plugging in the gaps at the very least of the front line. And I just want to make sure that as much manpower as I can is moving up and moving up nicely. And yeah, I guess we'll attempt a river crossing here. I'm not really expecting too much. Move up an infantry there. And maybe I can send an infantry all the way around perhaps, and put some pressure on the rail lines that are extending from Dnipropetrovsk, moving around further east. I don't really seem to be able to do too much there, unfortunately. I do think a good attack on Dnipropetrovsk would be a good move. Or maybe not. Maybe I decide to just attack the flank instead, and I might just do that. Yeah. And I still got one more unit here. Probably put it right there, I think. And then not really sure where to put this unit, but I do want it to move up. I'm gonna probably have to leave the 20th infantry behind because frankly I don't see where else to put it. I'll probably put it near there, and then yeah, we'll get Army Group South to move, and that's a decent move. I'm not really all that impressed by the German move, frankly. I think the Soviets actually did a pretty decent job of pulling back, but at the very least, we got our troops advanced. We did take Krivoy Rog, which is nice, so we're going to gain that production, and we have the rail supply. So unless the Soviets decide to counterattack, I don't see what more they can do over there. And oh, actually, one more unit. Oh no, I think I moved all my units. And then we'll sort of do some operations for Army Group Center now. I think the first one I want to do is attack Novgorod with as many troops as I can, basically. And I just want to make sure I have troops guarding the flanks of the German attack. Maybe I only attack with one German unit. Oh, I decided to deploy it down here so that I can get some more troops. I know, I think I should yeah, no, I think I should definitely deploy it further north, actually, so that I can launch some pretty nice attacks over here. Attacking Belug would be nice. I still have this infantry unit here. Not sure where to put it. Yeah, maybe we'll do something like that. I guess we'll attack with a Panzer. We can move this Panzer right over here. And still have a few other units that I can move forward. Move up some infantry. Oh, we can even make an attack on Smolensk, which I kind of want to see happen. And we're definitely going to go around this unit here near Orsha. Ooh, maybe we actually try to encircle and destroy the Soviets around Orsha, which should be quite interesting. Yeah, so we'll reinforce with that unit there. And I don't have that many troops left, frankly. Really don't. So you know what? I'm gonna actually cancel this unit. I'm gonna move him north. And then this infantry, I'm actually gonna move further east. And I still have one more infantry to deploy. But yeah, I mean, I think these attacks are pretty decent. They're not perfect, but there's clearly a need to put pressure on Smolensk. And I kind of want to deploy Army Group Center 4 just to you know, put more defenses or put more pressure on the Soviets. And kind of threaten to break the operation, essentially force the Soviet player to redeploy their forces, and in this manner we can really get some serious damage going on there. I'm not really too concerned about actually taking certain areas right now. I kind of want to just get my momentum to move. Oh, and I actually deployed my HQ here, so I could actually attack with another unit. So let's move the 54th Corps over here instead. And then this Panzer, yeah, we're gonna go back to the original attack, and then this infantry will actually cover the flank right there. Yeah, in case the Soviets do anything sneaky. And then on next turn, I have plenty of units that I'm gonna have to move strategically to reinforce the front. So plenty of units that need to be moved around to reinforce the front. But overall, I think these moves are pretty good. They're not the best, but they're decent. And I think for the sake of keeping the game balanced and everything, I think it's pretty fair if we just kind of make spontaneous moves for both sides and see how it plays out, right? So yeah, these are some pretty good moves, I think. I kind of do want to launch an airstrike on Smolensk. I really do. But I kind of want to deploy Armor Group Center. So yeah, maybe we do try an airstrike. Maybe we try to destroy this Soviet tank army, perhaps. Although frankly, I think it would be best if we were to go around it. But yeah, we'll do an airstrike. We'll do an airstrike here and see how this battle plays out. It may be a little risky, actually. If I'm going to attack, I might as well attack with another Panzer. I think I should attack with another Panzer for sure. To really kind of liquidate that group there. It's definitely roll the dice. It's quite possible the Soviets do roll heavy dice, so I'm actually not going to attack there. We're going to attack at Smolensk instead. See how it goes. And then yeah, that should sum up the turn. I could also deploy OKH and move it somewhere. Not really sure where I would want to put it. I don't know if I would want to support southern operations or northern operations. Probably going to move it to the south a little bit because there's only one big HQ over here. And then yeah, let's that sums up the movement. Now for the combat phase. Ooh, super weak units. Oh, we roll the dice for air power, boom. Easy win. And a nice thing, we actually have now cut off. We've cut off the Soviet army there at Orsha, which is pretty nice. Boom. Right, because the Soviets attacked over here earlier, and they are cut off. So that's going to sum up the German turn. I think a pretty simple turn. Oh, we still have the few battles in the north, actually, before I finish off the video. Defense of Novgorod, infantry there. We score 1 hit. This is going to be unsupported battle. So typically there's going to be double defense in the forest terrain. But because it's unsupported, meaning that there's no HQ that is supporting the attack, right? The command range of Army Group Center is only 3, was 3. And this is 4 hexes away from Army Group Center. So no matter what would have happened, I would have not been able to support this attack. So we're going to roll and see if we score. Had I scored 3 hits, the first roll would have been the Panzers scoring on 5 or 6, and the infantry only rolling on 6s. I scored 2 hits, but I was 2 out of 3 hits needed to score 1 hit on the unsupported battle here in the forest at Novgorod. So nothing's going to happen there. Battle Demyansk. No hits here. And then the Battle of Bolog. See here, strong panzers, Soviet panzers. Ooh, and again, no hits, unfortunately, because it was unsupported. And I got one more battle here, which is a river crossing at, I think it's called Kremenchug. So we'll see here, it's only 1 unit. They do successfully do 1 repulse, which I will have the Panzer Army actually get repulsed. Or maybe I should have the infantry get repulsed. Kind of want the Panzer to get repulsed because I can then use the Panzer on the next turn, do a little bit more damage. But the infantry, on the other hand, it's going to deny the Soviet ability to withdraw this unit if I leave the Panzer behind, which I kind of want. So yeah, yeah, we could pull the infantry back, but we probably need a little bit more infantry anyways in this sector. The Panzers will roll. They score no hits. All right. Well, that pretty much sums up this turn now. A couple Soviet units out of supplies. The one down here in the south is out of supplies. And also, we encircled Soviet army here, which is nice. And now we're going to be on the next turn. Once the Soviets finish their maneuvers, we're in a pretty good position here in the north. We can either focus on a breakthrough towards Leningrad, or focus on a breakthrough towards Moscow, possibly. And we've got a good amount of panzers in the region to do what needs to be done. And then we got a lot of infantry here in the center. Not that much going on here in the center. I really want to get these units deployed and on the move, basically. And then the real show is going to be breaking through somewhere around here. I think if we can encircle Kharkov, take Stalino possibly, it's going to be a really good series of operations for the Germans. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens next. But yeah, if we can break through around here and encircle Stalino, we can pretty much take the whole Donetsk industrial basin, everything but the last objective, which would be Rostov, way down southeast right there. But you can tell right here, once I get all the units off the map, you've got all kinds of Soviet industrial regions here. And I do think that taking industry away from the Soviet Union is really critical for a successful German campaign. And that's why we're also going to go for Leningrad. We won't actually gain anything from cutting off Leningrad, but the Soviets will lose a lot. They're losing both Donetsk production and Leningrad production. And that really only leaves them with Moscow and obviously all the other major industrial sites they have, but at least in the vicinity, the immediate vicinity, Moscow really is the main, it's going to be the main production hub, and that's going to be our next target. So I may or may not try to go for Moscow in the winter, but I think at some point I need to consider putting serious pressure on the Soviets at Moscow in some capacity to keep the pressure on them and away from us, right? Really away from the German side. But we're going to sum it up here. I'm going to then, in the next video, switch over to the Soviet side, and then we'll get to see things from the Soviet perspective. But I love the contrast. It's not as fun, it's not as exciting to do solo play than it is with playing with another opponent, but this game has enough level of detail for it to be somewhat entertaining. And I find the studies, or at least the not necessarily study, but the reflection or the better, at the very least, the feel of each side to be quite an intriguing one from a military perspective. And yeah, we're going to go on. Army Group North and Center are very close to one another, very powerful army groups. They both can do a serious damage towards Leningrad or towards Moscow. So we're going to see what happens on the next turn. And then Army Group South has its own objectives, and they're within range. I think these are pretty realistic objectives for 1941. And then possibly if we take Moscow, I think we basically win the conflict at the end of 1941, and the war would be all but over, basically. But without further ado, I'm going to stop the video here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also leave a comment down below on your favorite aspect of the Eastern Front. What was your favorite battle? What was your favorite moment in Operation Barbarossa? Because that Barbarossa is such a large operation. I mean, it could really be subdivided into a number of different battles, almost infinite, I do think, in some sense. But yeah, let me know what your favorite moment in the campaign was. What do you think was the most decisive moment in the campaign? Everybody would say that it's the decision to pull away from towards Kiev and away from Moscow. I completely disagree with that, given how tenacious the Soviet army was. I do think that if they had abandoned or ignored their southern flank, it would hurt them some point in the future in the winter operations. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what your favorite moment in the battle, and let me know what parts of Barbarossa are still somewhat of a mystery, because this operation is so large. The entire Eastern Front is such a large campaign and conflict that often we can get lost in the details. So let me know what parts of the front or what parts of the war you want to learn more about, and maybe in the future I can make a playthrough scenario of a later time in the conflict, and we can get a look at how the armies were fighting during that stage, because this game has scenarios for every year of the war. So we're doing a 1941 scenario, but there's a 42, 43, 44 scenario, and even 45 scenario, and there's also winter scenario. So there's a lot of tools here to work with. The game is really well made. So if you want me to make a later war scenario, I definitely can. I can start a video series for that as well. So with that said, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.